Hi everyone, welcome back to Steam Flow. Today I want to cover three topics shaking up the Steam Deck and Valve world. I want to talk about the upcoming next VR headset that Valve are working on. That's codenamed Deckard. Many people believe that it will be coming either later this year or early next year. I also want to talk about the Steam Deck verification system. We recently hit over 20,000 verified and playable games, but this year alone there's been a lot of titles that got the verified badge without actually running that well on the Steam Deck, so we're going to talk about that. And lastly, I'm going to talk about a pretty good deal on Humble Bundle with a bundle of 8 games that run great on the Steam Deck and are co-op oriented. But without further ado, let's get into it. Now, Valve's original VR headset, the Index, is still a beast. It's one of the best VR headsets out there, but there has been whispers and rumors about their next VR, and that's been going on for I think more than a year now. Somebody even set up a website to tell you if the new VR headset is out or no. Now, this standalone VR headset codenamed Deckard is rumored to drop either late 2025 or early 2026, and it's going to be a standalone VR that doesn't require connection to PC. It's rumored to be able to play both VR games and non-VR games in sort of like a big screen configuration where you sit back and you watch a screen like in a movie theater or something. There's been some patent leaks, renders of the new controllers, and little pieces of information here and there. Some people claim that Valve are already manufacturing parts for this in the US, but the reason I'm bringing this up is yesterday Valve released a maintenance update for Steam VR with some love for Linux support. Now, this isn't a big update, but it isn't small either, and the interesting part is that this is the third update to Steam VR in the last 3 months. So I think between May and August there's already been 3 updates, and for comparison the last big update happened in February. So it certainly seems like Valve is gearing up to launch something VR related, and they're trying to make sure that Steam VR is stable enough for that release. It could be a new VR game, or it could be this standalone VR headset. Now, unlike the tethered Index, Deckard is expected to run a souped-up version of SteamOS and some of the same tech that is currently powering your Steam Deck. It's going to be capable of running both standalone VR titles, non-VR titles, and you can still connect it to your PC, I believe, to use it as a normal VR. Imagine playing your favorite Steam games, VR or not, wherever you go. If it has the same power of a Steam Deck or just a little bit better, I think it's gonna be a really cool device. Now, word on the street is that Valve is already manufacturing some of the parts for this device in the US, which adds some serious cred to these rumors. But there is a big kicker about all of this. The rumored price is set to be around $1,200 US. Now, that's a pretty premium price for this device. It's not going to be like the Steam Deck, where Valve actually sold Steam Decks at a loss and they could later gain more profit by having more customers to sell games to. This is going to be a device that sells a lot less than the Steam Deck, especially at this price. I don't know what the idea is here, but maybe Valve will package this with another Half-Life VR title, maybe Portal VR title. Now, VR tech is still pretty expensive for it to hit mainstream, so I'm really not sure what the end goal here is with this release, if it even happens. Remember, these are all rumors, but if it does, let me know in the comments what game would you like to see launched with the Deckard. Maybe another Half-Life VR title, or maybe Valve will set a precedent again with some new type of controller that will enhance our non-VR games in some way. I'm really curious to see. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, from VR dreams to handheld reality, let's talk about the Steam Deck verification system. Recently, somebody discovered that there are now over 20,000 titles on the Steam store that are marked either verified or playable, which is a pretty big number. But there is a problem. Valve's verified system is letting some players down. In some recent releases, for example, games like Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered has been stamped verified from the get-go, but is actually suffering from stuttering, glitches, crashes, and I think it's more terrified than verified. So what really gives? After digging into some user feedback, it's clear that verified just means that the game boots without any extra tinkering, it runs without instant crashes, and the text is big enough to read, the controls work. That's pretty much it. For the playable tag, most of the games still run, boot without tinkering, but some of the text may be very small, or some of the button prompts may be different, or some of the controls don't work. They don't really talk about the crashes, the experience, the minimum FPS you're gonna get, and some of this information can be very misleading to users. Gamers are frustrated and many are running to sites like ProtonDB to check the real scoop on how games run. However, ProtonDB isn't really Steam Deck specific, even though you can filter by Steam Deck. It doesn't necessarily talk about the performance of games, but rather the performance of using Proton layer. So it doesn't give the full picture either. Now, fixing this mess isn't going to be easy, and I'm not sure if Valve even knows where to start. If you've already verified 20,000 games, you can't just change the criteria and start over again. After all, it took them about 3 years to get to that number, so I'm not really sure if there's anything that can be done. For now, they are stuck balancing simplicity with clarity, and if you are somebody that looks at the verified badge and doesn't really know if a game can run on the Steam Deck or not, my advice is just don't trust the badge at all. You can check out ProtonDB, but you can also check out posts on Reddit, on Twitter, and watch YouTube videos to get a better idea of how a game can run on the Steam Deck. There's also a lot of games that are marked as unsupported due to some various launchers or problems with controllers that run perfectly fine on the Steam Deck with some tinkering, and these games will never get the same kind of love, so it's really worth checking multiple sources before you purchase a game if you plan to play it specifically on the Steam Deck. Unfortunately, that's just the workaround that we currently have in order to deal with this issue. If you have a game that's been marked as verified but it runs more like terrified on the Steam Deck, let me know about it in the comments below. I'd love to hear some more examples. Now, enough frustration, let's end up on a high note with some deals that will level up your Steam Deck game. Currently there is a bundle being sold on Humble Bundle that's specifically targeted for Steam Deck users and for co-op games. If co-op chaos is your vibe, Humble Bundle is better with 4 friends deal is a steal. For just $10 you can get 8 indie games like Spider Hack, Moving Out, Unrailed, and Towerfall Ascension, most of which are Steam Deck verified or playable. Towerfall alone is $20 on Steam Store, so this bundle is a no-brainer. It's perfect for local or online play. Now, these games aren't tailor-made for the Steam Deck, but nevertheless they still run pretty great, and I think you're gonna have a great time with them. So these are the topics I wanted to cover in today's video. I'm really interested on your thoughts about the new VR headset. I know it's not really related to the Steam Deck, but it's another piece of hardware coming out from Valve, and we've learned to expect quality from them. If you've got any thoughts on the verification system, drop them below. Subscribe for more Steam news, and I'll see you guys in the next video.